Hi everyone, it's Monica, and welcome to the 2018 Save the YouTubers video hop. This is our second annual YouTuber hop, where a group of crafty friends are getting together to share some fun cards and techniques. We're hoping you'll also be so inspired that you'll subscribe to our channels along the way. For my project this year, I decided to create a fall mixed media card, and I'm going to be using several mediums to create my card today. We have some wonderful sponsors sponsoring this event, and we're going to be offering over 125 prizes. So make sure that you do give some of our sponsors some love. And don't forget, you have to leave a comment on the videos to be able to qualify for the drawing of the prizes. All right, so let's get into the card. Now to create my background, I'm using 5 Distressed Oxide inks, and I'm using the Distressed Mixed Media Heavystock. Now the 5 colors that I'm using today are Spiced Marmalade, Vintage Photo, Wild Honey, Fossilized Amber, and Paled Paint. And I'm spreading the ink on my craft mat, and then I'm spritzing it with some water. Now I decided to use my Distressed Oxides because I wanted to create several layers, and I really love how the Distressed Oxides layer on top of the colors. You want to make sure that when you are using this technique and using these inks, that you dry over each layer. So you want to do your initial layer, and you want to have your drying tool right next to you so you can dry it completely. And this really enables you to have a layered effect more than a muddy effect. So once I was happy with my design, I decided to outline the edge using my Walnut Stain Distress ink. So once I was happy with the overall look of the background using my inks, I decided to create a little bit more interest using a stamp set. Now the stamp set that I'm using today is from Stampers Anonymous, and it's called Etcetera. And I am trying out my new scrapbook.com black hybrid ink along with my ledger stamp. Now when I'm creating this background, I don't use the stamp in its entirety. I ink up the stamp, and then I just take bits and pieces of it to create interest on the background. And then after I finish adding some of the interest, then I do take some black distress paint, and I water it down with a little bit of water, and I create some splatters onto my background. Now after I've added my splatters, I do want to go ahead and use my drying tool to make sure that my background is completely dried. Alright, so once my background was completely dried, I decided to add a little bit more of a design using some washi tape. Washi tape is great to create borders, and it is especially nice to use if you're trying to ground something. I knew that I was going to be using an image on this card once I was finished, and I wanted to make sure that my image didn't look like it was floating in air. So washi tape is a really nice addition to ground some of your items. Alright, so at this point my background is pretty flat, but I did want to add some texture to my background. Now there's a couple of ways that you can add texture. You can certainly use some stencils and some of your texture paste, but I decided to go ahead and stamp out some of my fall leaves and add them using some of my Distressed Collage Medium. The punch that I'm using is an old Fisker's punch, and it is one of my favorites to create fall leaves. The cardstock that I used to punch out my leaves already had some nice fall colors, so it was easy for me to just punch them out and add them directly on my page. As you can see, the colors are very similar to the background, and this was intentional because I didn't want the leaves to stand out too much. I just wanted to add some additional texture and have them blend into the background. Now there's a couple of collage mediums that I could have used for adhering my leaves, but I chose to use the Vintage Collage Medium because it does have a slight vintage tint, and again I wanted to add just a little bit more color to my fall background. The other color that you could have used, or I should say the other adhesive that you could have used, is just the matte medium, and that will dry clear for you. And then I added some additional washi tape to border the top of the card along with the bottom. Now before I finished off the card, I did want to add just a little bit more color. Most of my colors at this point were my yellows and my brown hues, and I wanted to add a little bit of green. So what I decided to use is some Magicals from Lindsay's Stamping Gang. And if you've never used this product before, this is a really great product to add some color. You can shake it right onto your card, and then adding moisture brings out the color. If you want a lot of moisture, you would go ahead and use your spritzer, but I just wanted some subtle green, so I used a wet wipe to go ahead and smash down some of the sprinkles that I had dropped onto the card, and that brought out some of the color. Alright, so at this point I was ready to go ahead and adhere my finished card onto a black piece of heavy cardstock. Now I do like to use heavy cardstock, especially when I am using multiple mediums and creating a mixed media card, because there is going to be some weight to this card. You want to make sure that your cardstock is going to hold up for you. Now for my focal point, I decided to use one of Tim Holtz's paper dolls, and I wanted to find the perfect image. Something that looked like more of a fall than winter. I wanted the person to be bundled up to look like it is a little bit chilly, and this lady worked perfectly. Now I thought about coloring her up, and I could have easily used some of my distress inks or some of my distress crayons, but I did want to have the contrast of the black and the white, so I went ahead and I left her as she was, and I just added some foam tape to give her a little bit more lift off of my background. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did add that washi tape to help ground my image, and this is what I was talking about. I didn't want her to look like she was floating on air, so a nice horizontal washi tape works great for grounding your images. Alright, and then to finish off the card, I did want to put a little sentiment, and I decided to keep it simple. I just decided to use some of these plastic sticker letters, and I'm going to spell out the word fall. And then once I had those letters adhered to my card, I did mount the black cardstock onto one of the new papers from the Tim Holtz Halloween set. Now before I mounted the card onto some white cardstock, I did use some raffia to create a little bow, and I thought this was a nice addition for a fall card. Now you could have easily used twine or any type of ribbon to create a bow, but again I wanted to add to the fall theme, and I had that extra raffia in my stash, so I went ahead and decided to use that. And the background that I did choose for my card is really subtle. I didn't want to go with too many colors because I didn't want it to take away from the design that I created, but I still wanted to have somewhat of a fall design, and this designer paper that I chose I thought worked perfectly. And then finally I was ready to go ahead and adhere my layers onto my heavy white cardstock, and that for the most part would complete my card. Now as a reminder, this is a video hop, so I will leave a link to the next person's video in the description below. I hope that you've enjoyed my process for creating a fall mixed media card, and that you'll consider subscribing to my channel as well. This card is an example of the type of cards that I create, and I hope to give you lots of ideas and inspiration along the way. Now I will leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the card, along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed my video, I would sure appreciate a thumbs up. And don't forget, we are going to have over 125 prizes on this hop, so you're going to want to make sure that you do leave a comment on my video and as many videos as you watch, because this will increase your chances of winning one of the great prizes from our sponsors. Alright everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope to see you again next time.